The Falcons are entering a rebuild season after trading away Matt Ryan. To fill the quarterback void, Atlanta signed Marcus Mariota, but they didn't stop there. At the draft, the Falcons took Desmond Ridder after his stellar college career at Cincinnati. The Falcons have a long road back to relevance, and Ridder might just be the guy to lead them there. Ridder was a 3-star out of high school and ended up committing to Cincinnati, where he redshirted his first year. Then he got the starting gig in 2018 and excelled. Ridder was the AAC Rookie of the Year after he threw for 2,445 yards and 20 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Plus, he rushed for 572 yards and 5 touchdowns. His redshirt sophomore season, Ridder passed for 2,164 yards and 18 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, in addition to 650 yards and 5 touchdowns rushing. The 2020 COVID year ended up being a breakout campaign for Ridder. He was the AAC Offensive Player of the Year after he threw for 2,296 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Ridder considered declaring for the 2021 NFL Draft, but instead, he opted to return for one last ride with the Bearcats, and it went amazing.
Let's ride!
Cincinnati went undefeated and won the AAC championship before becoming the first Group of 5 team to ever make the playoffs. Ridder was stellar. He passed for 3,334 yards and 30 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and on the ground he had 355 yards and 6 touchdowns. There weren't many negatives in Desmond Ridder's game in college. Sometimes he'd have some issues with accuracy, but he always seemed to fix it later in game. He has good, not great arm strength. It's obvious that he's a smart guy though. Ridder moves well in the pocket, and he has a deep offensive knowledge when going through concepts. Plus, he's a really good athlete. He's not a full-on blazer, but Ridder can scramble and be used on designed QB runs. Ridder shows flashes of incredible talent, can use his legs, and is already polished in the pocket with a good understanding of how to run an offense. That's why the Falcons took a shot on him in the 3rd round. Ridder got plenty of playing time in the Falcons' first preseason game. He played 3 quarters against the Lions, and his stat line didn't look great. 10 of 22 for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. On paper, not great, but there is one big caveat. There were 4 drops, and he even threw 1 pass away. Plus, he came up clutch in the end. With less than 2 minutes remaining on 4th down, Ridder found Jared Bernhardt for the game-winning touchdown. What do you expect from a guy that went 44-6 in college? He's a winner. Ridder didn't play nearly as much against the Jets. He only played 3 series, throwing for 143 yards after completing 10 of 13 passes. His performance did come with some disappointments, like 2 drives that made it to the end zone that didn't end with a touchdown. Arthur Smith said that he's got high expectations for Ridder, and that they're going to be hard on him. Ridder has also brought up that he has some things to clean up. He has one more chance to showcase his talent in the preseason against the Jaguars until we just play the waiting game, patiently sitting back for Atlanta to finally pull the trigger on Ridder over Marcus Mariota. The Falcons are obviously going through a rebuild, and that was made very clear by Atlanta trading away Matt Ryan to the Colts in exchange for a 3rd round pick. The draft hadn't come around yet, and the Falcons needed someone to play quarterback, so they signed Marcus Mariota to a 2-year, $18.75 million deal. With that contract, Atlanta has an out after this season that leaves just $2.5 million in dead cap. It's no surprise why the Falcons decided on Mariota. 2nd-year head coach Arthur Smith was the Titans' offensive coordinator in Mariota's last season in Tennessee, and before that, he was the tight ends coach. So there's already a clear relationship between the two. But of course, Mariota's time in Tennessee didn't go as well as he would have wanted. The Titans drafted him 2nd overall in 2015, and in 5 seasons, he just never turned into the guy he was supposed to. He was solid for his first 2 years, but over his last 3, Mariota had just 31 touchdowns to 25 interceptions. Mariota spent the last 2 years in Las Vegas as the backup to Derek Carr before the Falcons inked him this offseason. Marcus Mariota is a big-time acquisition for the Falcons this offseason, but he may or may not be on the roster in 2023. But you can bet on Drake London still being there. London was a 4-star recruit out of California before he committed to USC. He didn't have a huge role for the Trojans as a true freshman, but he did start most of their games, recording 567 yards and 5 touchdowns. He returned in 2020, that COVID-shortened year, to become a top wideout on the team. In only 6 games, London had over 500 yards and found the end zone 3 times en route to being named second team All Pac-12. Then he broke out even more in 2021. London was the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year after he had 1,084 yards and 7 touchdowns. Unfortunately, London went down with a fractured ankle in USC's 8th game. That didn't stop him from being a top pick, 8th overall at the draft. Drake London has some very high expectations this season as a rookie, but they aren't nearly as high as Kyle Pitts'. Pitts was selected 4th overall by the Falcons last year, making him the highest drafted tight end in NFL history, and he didn't disappoint. Pitts didn't exactly have a knack for the end zone in 2021, but hey, neither did the Falcons. He only had a single touchdown, but it came along 1,026 yards and a Pro Bowl selection. Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to be 2 of the guys to watch on a, well, bad Falcons team. But if you're looking for another reason to watch Atlanta, look no further than Cordarrelle Patterson. Right now, he's listed as a running back on the depth chart, but he does a bit more than that. He's always been a do-it-all kind of player, and last year, his first season in Atlanta, Patterson had over 500 rushing yards and over 600 receiving yards with 11 total touchdowns. He did it all, and he got a 2-year, $10.5 million deal because of it. We'll see what kind of role Patterson actually ends up with this season, but he's going to be an explosive playmaker to say the least. But it will be hard at times with the Falcons' offensive line. It could be worse, but there aren't exactly any reasons to be excited about it. Jake Matthews and Chris Lindstrom are fine starters, but the rest of the line is problematic. The Falcons have a lot of problems, more than I can even count, but there are some bright spots. The guy to look at on defense, if you want any reason to be excited about Atlanta, is AJ Terrell, a guy that's finally getting the recognition he deserves. The Falcons drafted Terrell back in 2020, and oh my goodness, he's been incredible. As a rookie, he had 7 passes defended, an interception, and forced 3 fumbles. Terrell was great, but he was even better last year. He was named a second-team All-Pro, defended 16 passes, 3 interceptions, and forced a fumble. There's not much else to be excited for past AJ Terrell. Life may be hard in the NFC South, and it doesn't help that Tom Brady unretired. The Buccaneers are probably still going to run the division. The Saints, I think, could surprise a lot of people, and they have a pretty good roster if everything just comes down to if Jameis Winston can be any good. Then you have the Panthers. Carolina's the only team I think Atlanta has any shot of being better than this season. Who knows what they're going to look like? How long is Baker Mayfield going to start? Will Sam Darnold get another shot? Is Christian McCaffrey going to stay healthy? I don't know. Ultimately, everybody in Atlanta knows what this year is. A rebuild. But Desmond Ridder could help speed that up.